these brands still think that when a video does bad or a post does bad, throwing money at it is the way to make it better. And you should never, ever, ever throw paid behind a post that fails.
Social platforms are going to be the new OTAs.
Whoever owns the moment of intent controls the bookings.
Are we going to get a bubble? There are thousands of hotels with hundreds of rooms that still need to be filled.
We're going to be focused on this independent, cool lifestyle and luxury, but I have to market like a bank.
I think that we can give our 2 cents into the stories that are going on.
Will be in your ears and on your screens every Friday morning.
Let's do it.
Let's roll.
This is the gold, bro. This is the gold.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the best hospitality podcast in the entire industry. We're not biased. I'm not biased. It's just unequivocally true. But thanks for tuning in to another episode of This Week in Hospitality, folks. We've got lots of stories we want to get to today, but also wanted to just catch up. There are 4 of us again, guys, which has not happened in like 3, maybe even 4 weeks. Fingers crossed that there will still be 4 of us at the end of the episode. The kind folks at Citizen M, wherever Edwin is, wherever Citizen M you are in, have assured Edwin in particular that his connection is solid. He's got a whole Ethernet situation going on. We're not even using Wi-Fi. Screw Wi-Fi.
We brought out the force. I'm not in a Citizen M, but we did bring out the entire truth.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
My apologies for last week. It was bad. It was sad, and it shouldn't happen again.
Yes. Alas, it's 2026, and we're still dealing with Wi-Fi issues, which is shocking. Here we've got all these AI agents doing all of our work for us, and we still can't frickin' connect to the internet for a Zoom call, But guys, so much to talk about today. Scott, you're still in Jamaica though, and rumor has it you've got a pretty sick view from your hotel. So where are you right now? Remind us what you're doing in Jamaica, and then give us a tour of your, or at least the view of your room.
So first off, I'm going to prove to you that I actually live in hotels. This is a real working hotel room. I am at the S Hotel Kingston, Montego Bay. And there's 2 properties, one in Kingston, one in Montego Bay. And I am here doing hurricane recovery content for properties over here. And it's very, very important work. But the view that I have this morning, and I hope the lighting is not going to...
Oh, my God.
We got it.
Ooh.
Very nice.
Look at that.
Beautiful.
We wish we were there. That's for sure.
Wow. That's just mean, Scott.
It doesn't suck. But
so are you guys basically
one
showing
That's a big poster.
Here's how Kingston, here's how the Jamaican community, the Jamaican hospitality has recovered after the hurricane? Like what's the angle?
So the biggest problem that everywhere in the Caribbean has after a hurricane hits is the hurricane's done, okay? It doesn't wipe out all properties. Some properties, this property never closed. Hurricanes are very fast. They move in, they move out very fast. So it never closed, but the surrounding properties all got tremendous damage and they're all still closed. So what happens is CNN, BBC, whoever it is, Jamaica get hit by a hurricane, they're devastated because they want to sell ratings. What that does to tourism is it crushes everybody. So the people that are open or were able to rebuild very quickly, they suffer for it. So we're down here. So this property in specific, they have one in Kingston and one here. The owner, Mr. Issa, he has formulated a plan where he is building 60 shelter homes for very devastated areas. So we're actually filming them building it. We're going on deliveries with them, showing the people receiving the homes. I mean, it's a big deal. So he's doing the right thing, and we're doing a lot of creator-led content to really let him sink into AI discoverability and stuff like that. And I'm moving to a different property owned by somebody else, and I'll be there all next week, which I will give you a tour of as again.
Well, hey, our expectations are high for the view. So you better tell them. You better say, hey, I'm on a podcast. I'm doing a podcast from your room. Just saying, in case there's a little upgrade available.
Listen, I am only saying all This Week in Hospitality viewers can have a discount code for any hotel that I ever stay at. How's that?
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Drop the code. Let's go.
Also, and I'm not saying this off air, I'll say it on air just in case. If you actually want to get the hotel owner that I'm staying at next week live on the podcast to do a session with us, it's completely possible. He's a good friend and he loves the camera.
Let's bring him on. Let's do a live from Jamaica little segment. I love it. I'm all about that. You know what's funny, guys? So Ben, I know at the end of last week's episode, it was just you and I, and we were talking about AI in hospitality content, and you had a great post on LinkedIn about it, and it got a little contentious. I had several folks actually DM me privately and say, the way that you guys positioned it around, we're so used to staging rooms, right, that don't actually, aren't exactly representative of the room that everyone's going to stay in. For them, that was like incredibly helpful framing to feel a little bit more comfortable with some of this experimentation. They were like, I hadn't quite thought of it like that. Or even like using models, right, for photo shoots. It's like, yes, these models are real people, but they're characters, right, in whatever positioning the marketing team's trying to do. So I think actually, although there certainly were some haters, I think that framing was helpful to folks, which is cool and exciting. Did you guys get any feedback, or did you hear anything from folks?
I very rarely reply to haters. I did reply to one guy in the comments. I'm just like, dope. I'm sure this is going to age well. Like this stuff never.
I saw it.
You know what I mean? It's just like, come on. In like 5-10 years, like everybody's going to be doing this, right? So it's about accuracy and all that.
But if everybody agrees with your post, you didn't do it right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I feel like if you don't push it to the edge, like why even make a comment?
Yeah.
Don't make a safe comment. Like you're not like none of us are under a big brand umbrella. Like say what you feel.
Yeah.
Normally with my post, Scott, I'm mostly, and you probably get a lot of this too, like people bitching about the rates. And it's like you get what you pay for. I mean, that's always right. Massive capitalist society, or it's like in another country, and it's like, who is the original owner of this? 3 centuries ago. That's what I get. I just don't respond usually. But this guy, I felt the need to respond. And the AI.
I saw it. It's great. It was great.
I was so tempted to chime in, and I decided.
Oh, come on, Zach.
What I was gonna say, like, the reality is you won't be able to tell in 5 years, right? Like that's
100%.
That's the true reality. When you're browsing through content of a hotel brand, it's going to be, quite frankly, like nearly impossible to impossible to understand. And the other point that I'm working on kind of another post. I shared a post about this like a week ago, but no one's been up in arms about hotels filtering images. Right. Like, and like, I think about just any editor, any videographer, right? You filter your content, you edit the content.
Of course you do.
So the sunset that you're seeing is not exactly how the sunset looked when it was shot. Right. And so I think this whole notion, right? People are just scared, and that's fine. And fear is valid. But the idea that like content has not been manipulated, if you will, for marketing purposes.
Yeah. Everything
is just ridiculous. And that's how this is all being positioned. It's like you're being forced to choose between like being authentic and like real and being cheap. I think that's the connotation that people are. I think people associate it with being cheap. And I think that's just the wrong way to look at it. And I think history, the last decade, right, where social has been huge, where digital content has been huge, every single piece of content that we see has been manipulated in some way, shape, or form to tell the story that the creator, the artist, wants to tell with that piece. And we weren't open arms about
that. And that's good, right? And people want to look at those pictures. And I think that's why things like TripAdvisor and Booking.com, when they've got platforms where it's guest pictures uploaded. For something that guests really experience. I mean, that's great, right? You can compare. And we all know that everything is staged and everything is manipulated in that sense, or we should know at least.
Yeah. Anyways, we could talk about this all day, but let's get into the docket, gentlemen. Several stories to cover. First up here is Accor is officially trying to turn Orient Express from a legendary train into a fully formed ultra luxury ecosystem. So for context, for those who have not been watching this story as closely, myself included, Accor first acquired a 50% stake in the brand from France's national rail company, SNCF, in 2017, and then it took full ownership in 2022. Then in 2024, Accor brought in LVMH as a strategic partner to accelerate the development of this brand, and they moved pretty fast, relatively speaking, for these sorts of partnerships. So since that partnership took place, they've launched La Dolce Vita Orient Express, which debuted with itineraries primarily through Italy, really leaning into mid-century Italian glamour. I feel like when they first launched, my feed was just overwhelmed with this beautiful content. And then they also had Orient Express La Minerva in Rome, which opened last spring, and they're gearing up to launch their first sailing yacht, the Orient Express Corinthian, which should launch this summer if all goes as planned in the Mediterranean. So pretty cool. They're taking this legacy brand, this storied brand, and trying to move it beyond just luxury trains, right into luxury cruise lines and yachts, also hotels. Scott, I want to go to you here first. Do you think what do you think of this move just generally? Is this going to be Accor's true ultra luxury crown jewel, something similar to Aman or Four Seasons with respect to their ecosystem, or is this still fundamentally just a collection of high-end assets tied together by a powerful name? How do you think about this move? What are you excited about? Any inside intel into any of these brands? Give us your take.
I've always been a big fan of the Orient Express brand as a whole. I was not excited when Accor bought into it, but I thought it was the smartest move that they could make when they brought LVMH. It changed everything. Once LVMH stepped in, this stopped being a hospitality strategy and started becoming a luxury play. That signals long-term brand equity thinking, not only RevPAR thinking. Aman and Four Seasons, they operate ecosystems rooted in service philosophy. Orient Express is attempting an ecosystem rooted in narrative and romance. That's harder. Narrative can attract, but operations must sustain. That is the biggest issue they're going to have moving forward. But can they do it? Absolutely. Will they do it? If they don't only have short-term thinking and have long-term brand equity, then yes, it can happen.
It was interesting. The article of the news that broke this week was specifically talking about how whether it be a hotel or a yacht and or train, right, that joins this collection has to have a really storied past, right? And so the bar that they're using for curation is not is it in this strategic market that makes sense? Is it in this really iconic part of the city, right? It's really what is the freaking story behind this asset, and is it good enough, quite frankly, to tell over and over and over and over. So I thought that kind of curation standard of what is the actual story behind the train or behind the building was interesting. Edwin, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the game changed, right, when LVMH entered as a strategic partner. Because LVMH, they don't invest to play small. I think interesting fact here is I think it's called the Venice Simplon Orient Express line. That is still part of Belmont.
Yeah.
And LVMH owns Belmont separately. So that's interesting, right? So you got two Orient Express narratives running parallel.
Yeah, it's an A/B test.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, to me, this is power positioning, right? It's not just assets. And I think the interesting thing here, yes, there's a lot of mythology, there's a lot of storytelling here, and they've come with rails, hotels, yachts now into a narrative continuity. It's really, really storytelling, and that's a very different strategic play they had from, adding another Sofitel tier flag. But if you look at them, I think Accor, we discussed them a couple of times before. They're playing a very clever game. Some of the brands they have are really connected to what the world wants today, and it's the storytelling. If you look at Raffles, and they just put somebody else in charge of sales and marketing in Raffles and Fairmont, an ex-colleague of mine. They've got Faena, the Banyan Tree hotels. They're really distinctive brands. And whilst this is not yet an Oman or Four Seasons, which taken decades to build on not just great locations and beautiful buildings and great assets, but really on ecosystems. With what they're trying to do, I think there is a real trying to build an ecosystem like that for the future, and that might take a decade, but I think it's super one to watch.
And I want your thoughts too on what you thought about this move, but then even a follow up. One of the things I've been thinking about in all the conversations we've had over the last several weeks is there's obviously this moves towards storytelling. There's this move that we all believe that the best brands in the world in the next decade will understand how to master storytelling, specifically storytelling on social. Who are the people that are being brought in to help tell these stories? Like, do you have any inside narrative or knowledge rather on who's heading up social at these brands? Like, are they outsourcing everything? Are they bringing people in house? Like, I mean, this is a tall order. And I was thinking this is just an anecdote too about how Four Seasons, right, still has this like massive appeal, massive like cultural relevancy. Now, maybe it's in part because of the White Lotus in recent years, but like for across generations, like my grandmother, right, thinks very highly of the Four Seasons. I obviously think very highly of Four Seasons. My little cousins the other day, when I asked them what they thought the best hotel in the world was, they said the Four Seasons. And so and they're 8 and 9. And so it's just funny, right, how some brands, right, with everything that we've been talking about, are able to kind of maintain this level of, or at least this perceived level of perfection or luxury or whatever the word is. How do you think folks like Accor, in the launch of this new brand, this augmentation of this new brand, what's their social play? What's their content play? Like, who are they finding to help come in and make this a hit? Any thoughts there?
So to be honest, no. I know some of their marketing people. I don't think they're cutting edge of social media. I know how to create viral content. I don't think any of the big brands or big sort of ownership groups of brands like an Accord does. I don't think there's one out there. Some of the independents do it well, but not a group like Accor from what I've seen. Now, with that said, I think Accor is phenomenal at picking brands that they end up purchasing. I think Habitas was amazing. Banyan Tree, like they have a Raffles, as was said, a pretty amazing collection. And I do think the brand deterioration is less with Accor purchase properties than some of the other big brands. It's still, I'm sure there'll still be some deterioration, but it's not as dramatic. And yeah, I mean, I was just looking at their feeds. I hadn't done it before, but I was just looking at it now. Like I was looking at Orient Express. I was looking at Banyan Tree. I mean, it's all, sure they have sizable follower counts in some cases, but everything's, sub 50K views, a lot of sub 10K views, mediocre engagement. The page is really pretty, but they're not growing massive awareness from social. And with Gen Z and millennials becoming the biggest travel segment by far, like they got to get hip to the game sooner or later, or newer brands that still have that premium luxury positioning but understand social media and how to connect with the modern traveler are going to win. So they got to like wake up to that sooner or later, or they're going to get passed by. Now, I think Orient Express has incredible storytelling potential. Like it's such a missed opportunity to not make this, a brand, an account that's going viral every other week. This whole idea of, you can go, yacht, ship, whatever, cruise to train to hotel and maybe multiple and have this whole itinerary that moves is very unique to Orient Express. And I think that they should lean into that and craft amazing viral storytelling content around it.
Yeah. Who do you bring in? Like Scott, who do you bring in to do this? Like, do you bring in a producer from Hollywood? Like, do hotels just up level like the content strategist, if you will, the production strategist behind this brand? I mean, again, it's one of the most storied transportation, hospitality, like brands, maybe ever, right? What are the kinds of roles you think we're going to see folks hire for? It's been funny, just even in the enterprise SaaS B2B tech space that I kind of live in, seeing just how dramatically like job descriptions and job listings, right, and job postings have shifted in the last even just 6 months. And I keep thinking, what does that mean for content? What does that mean for marketing? What does that mean for hotels? Any thoughts on the kinds of positions we'll see? Maybe the top players like the Accors of the world do hire for. They've got more resources, more budget, obviously, than some of the smaller independents. But who should, in an ideal world, they be hiring to really own the storytelling of the brand?
So you said it right. They do have big budgets. The problem is the bigger brands don't usually spend the big budgets where it's needed. They need to hire the right team, and that is going to require a significant investment. And do I think that they're going to do it? Let's say I'm in the camp of I hope that they do it. I have no confidence in big brands investing in what they really need to invest in. Like Ben said, most of them are very flat. Most of them are very, they're caught up in, oh, let's have a pretty grid. Okay, that's fine, but it doesn't bring you ROI. They need to bring in Jeremy Jauncey for beautiful destinations. They need to bring in Dream Beach Productions from the UK. They need to bring in, somebody like Ben, somebody like they just need to bring in a proper team in-house for this whole project. They can't, I'm going to get a videographer from here. I'm going to get a storyboard guy from here. They have to be a team. If it's not a cohesive team, it's never going to work out. And you do see, you're talking about the various job titles, and you're seeing chief content officer, chief social media architect. Yeah. You're seeing it start to happen, but they're not happening with the big flags in hospitality, unfortunately. The one who does flip the switch one day and go all in on content and really do it right, when I tell you they're going to flip hospitality industry on its head.
They're going to do laps around everybody.
Yeah, it's not because you already have the scale. Yeah, it's crazy.
So one tactical tip when it comes to hiring these people: show me the videos that you've put out that have gone viral. Right? So many people like reach out to me for hiring and I want to work at Awasi and all the rest. It's like, show me the goods. Like, what have you posted that has gone viral? Right? Like, and that tells me that you understand storytelling and how to connect with the modern consumer in a way that resonates, where they share, save, all the rest. So I just wanted to say that little tip because, almost every person in these marketing departments across every big brand out there, none of them have made a post ever that has gone viral. Right? And you need to bring those people into your team. So.
Well said. Edwin, go ahead before we move on to the next story.
Yeah, no, I think because it just hasn't been the focus, I think, for a lot of these brands, right? And, I've worked at some of the larger companies, and I can see when you've got, a certain regional team or a team sitting in a head office somewhere who oversee 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 10 brands. It's very difficult to get your finger on the pulse of just imagine how you divide your time in a week or in a day on all these brands. So, to get to that level, it's going to require culture change. But I think what we're seeing with Accor here, if you look at some of their lifestyle brands, which are really fun. I don't know if you guys know the 25-hour brands. I mean, there are some real fun brands besides the Hoxton and some of the other things they do on the continent here that are going to make it to the US. But they have separate brand teams in their head office, and Accor, I think, does this really well. There's a smaller team who oversees a certain amount of brands, and then you can start focusing much more on what your audience is and what your direction, what your strategy is. And we see now some of these big companies getting into AI, which we'll talk about, a bit later. But I think there will be a switch because, it all takes time, right, for the big companies to move and to switch gear. But now with the entire narrative changing and the way we describe properties and the way we're going to be able to have our portfolio and our brands distributed along all these AI platforms, it's going to have to change. Otherwise, we're just not going to get there.
Well said. Well, gentlemen, let's move along to our next story here. So it was reported this week, or actually at the tail end of last week, by Skift that Casago's evolution from a founder-driven short-term rental franchise into one of the sector's biggest players has hit a moment of friction. For those who might not have followed this story as closely, Casago's founder, Steve Schwab, will hand off the CEO role to President Joe Riley in October. This is a change that's been described publicly as very orderly and expected, but internally, one that has stirred unease among some franchisees and does come as a bit of a surprise. The leadership shift comes on the heels of Casago's major acquisition of Vacasa, a deal that saw the once public vacation rental giant folded into Casago's franchise model last year. With Vacasa properties largely being integrated into the Casago network, the company now presides over one of the largest short-term rental portfolios in the U.S. But the growth has also raised questions about culture, control, and cohesion, as any big strategic merger or acquisition does. Franchisees who signed on for the founder-led era are reportedly weighing their level of confidence in the company's direction, with some quietly floating the idea of exiting the system if the governance and strategic approach change under new leadership. Casago says Schwab will stay deeply involved, shifting his focus to long-range strategy, industry advocacy, and customer engagement after the transition. But in a franchise business where trust, stability, and shared vision are currency, perception, as we all know, matters as much as formal titles do. This story for Scott and Edwin, who are maybe not as in tune to what's happening in the world of short-term rentals as maybe Ben and I have been over the years. This was a huge story over the last 6 months, really better part of a year. Everyone was wondering. There was the hostile takeover bid that happened, right? I mean, it was a very, very dramatic moment for those in the short-term rental space. A lot of folks had a high confidence in Steve. There was a lot of excitement that Casago won the bid in the end. So this does come as a huge shock, and I've heard lots of things from folks in the STR space in particular, wondering what's going on. Ben, I want to go to you first here. I don't know if you actually know Steve, but I know that you know Steve or people in the Casago orbit, people in the short-term rental space. What did you think about this move when you saw this news? What's your take? And then Scott and Edwin will go to you.
Yeah, certainly surprising. I mean, what, eight months or so, not even 7-8 months since the announcement of the merger or the acquisition, that Steve's moving on or out, or hard to really know. So certainly came as a surprise. We knew that the integration of these two giants and really bringing Vacasa inside Casago was going to be a massive challenge. I don't know how successful they have been. I haven't really heard a ton, to be honest. Personally, like if I was an owner, and at one point I was an owner that had outside management managing vacation rentals of mine before I started my own management company. And knowing what I know now, I probably would have run for the hills as soon as the merger happened, because it just sounds like such a cluster to try to create that integration. There's going to be a period where they're figuring things out and things are going to break. So I probably would have run for the hills then. When it comes to now with the CEO change, I mean, I think that like it's very hard to say how much it's going to impact performance. Like it could be good, it could be bad, right? I don't know Steve personally. I think it depends on the direction he was moving the company in, and also like his relationship building and charisma with owners doesn't necessarily translate to being an effective, leader from a performance standpoint. So I don't know him well enough, or the inside of the org enough. But to me, if I was an owner, I'd want a shorter term contract, right? I'm not getting locked up for years. I want to know how this thing's going to play out. I wouldn't at this point, just because of a CEO change move. I would kind of wait to see what happens, but just try to opt for a shorter term contract. So.
Yeah. Well said. Scott, Edwin, anything that you guys, any perspective you want to add to this story?
Yeah, I am familiar with the story and I have been following it. Founder exits are never neutral in franchise systems, only for the press release. Franchisees, they buy into the vision as much as they buy into systems. When the founder steps back, the psychological contract shifts. Vacasa integration massively scaled footprint, but scale introduces cultural drift. And franchisees who don't they don't fear growth, they fear loss of alignment. And you can say the founder is still involved, but if the franchisees feel a physiological shift, it creates instability very fast. That's my 2 cents.
Edwin, what about you, man?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Founder transition, just from a psychological point of view, it's always a stress test, right? When somebody steps back, it's not like, is the new CEO capable? It's more of, does the soul of the company change? And I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I was at a conference I guess it was probably a year ago. It was the VRMA's, the Vacation Rental Management Association's like executive summit. So they bring like, I don't know, 200 of like the top vacation rental management companies in the world to this event, and it's like a CEO conference. Quite frankly, it's really like a party for all the executives in the space to get drunk and talk about all the problems in the industry and how hard everything is and whatnot. There's certainly some decent content as well, but it's really sort of a camp, if sort of atmosphere is the best way I can describe it. But right, this event was happening right as this acquisition was like going through. Finally, there was a hostile takeover bid. There was all this uncertainty, and the amount of respect that Steve had, at least in that room, right, was undeniable. I mean, he's a very calm, kind of cool, collected individual. He actually, Ben, was trying to get his personal brand going. So he started putting out some like cool little like short form videos on LinkedIn. He started getting a little bit more active on LinkedIn. I mean, he was very highly respected in that space. Everyone was rooting for Casago to be the winner, quite frankly, and bring Vacasa private. And so what I don't know is if it's just like, the PE money that was used to solidify this deal, that, I think Silver Lake's involved in this deal. I don't know if basically the money all along knew that Steve was like the nice guy to help like get industry buy-in, and then they were going to swap him with like a professional, if you will, CEO right off the bat. Like, I don't know if that was always the plan, but what I will just say, for what it's worth, is that the community really did rally behind Steve, and everyone you talked to said, he had very high confidence in him as an individual, him as a business professional, et cetera. So I don't know what happened. I wish I had some intel. And actually, our buddy Will Slickers actually wrote this article and kind of like broke the story for Skift. So I've been DMing him a little bit, trying to get some additional intel. So we'll report back as we have more info. But by all accounts that I saw in the industry, Steve had great respect, and so this was a huge shock to many folks who've built great businesses in the space. All right, guys, let's move on to story number 3 here. So last week, actually it was a couple weeks ago, we talked about Accor launching a ChatGPT app. They were at the time the first hotel brand to partner directly with ChatGPT to produce an in-app experience where folks could research travel and basically travel plan, also get a list of curated Accor hotels if and when their prompts asked for specific hotel recommendations. A really cool app, kind of married research with actual booking intent and whatnot. You obviously were redirected to actually make the final booking on the Accor brand's various websites, but a very cool consumer experience. We learned this week that Hyatt has also just announced their ChatGPT app. So, we're seeing kind of one of the big flags really get into the space as well. Hyatt's CEO, Mark, said that the company is already seeing a lift from AI-driven search behavior, while also revealing that Hyatt has launched a dedicated ChatGPT app experience designed to meet travelers where discovery is increasingly happening. So we're seeing, again, one of the big four admit and really sort of endorse AI search as a primary discovery tool for travel and for Hyatt's business in particular. According to the reporting, Hyatt is seeing improved visibility and engagement through AI-assisted search queries, suggesting that travelers are beginning to plan trips differently. They're asking open-ended questions. They're comparing experiences conversationally, and they're seeking recommendations rather than simply typing, hotel in Chicago into their Google search. The ChatGPT integration signals something bigger. Hyatt wants to ensure its inventory, brand voice, and loyalty hooks are embedded directly into emerging AI discovery layers rather than relying solely on OTAs or traditional search funnels. So why I thought this was interesting is we've seen Accor make lots of really big, bold moves in recent years. We just talked about a story a couple minutes ago, right? Of what everything that they're doing with the Orient Express brand. They are a more progressive brand. You could argue that they have maybe a little bit less to lose than the Hilton, Marriott, and Hyatts of the world. But seeing Hyatt jump on board now, I think, is an incredibly strong signal. So, Edwin, I want to go to you here first. A couple weeks ago, we're talking about Marriott doing everything they can to ban ChatGPT from crawling their websites, from scraping their content, from garnering availability, right? And we're seeing their competitor a couple weeks later announce, right, a deep integration with one of the leading LLMs in the world. So what do you think of this move? What do you think of this story? What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, these stories are coming out now, but if you read into the story, I mean, people have been at it for a couple of years already, right? So that's the cool factor, and I think it just depends who's going to be next, right? And there'll be more to come. I think it's a very different scenario than with the OTAs in the 2000s. AI search is not SEO 2.0. I think that Hyatt is moving in early signals that this is distribution, right? This is not marketing. But it's going to be different to see, and the difference here is how brands utilize this. So, we've been talking about this before, that if discovery of properties, of brands, or where you want to go, if that becomes conversational, then the brand visibility becomes a narrative, not keyword driven. And it's a change of how we do business. And, we talked about this when we talked about the in-app, about who owns the relationship and where bookings end, right? So where does the booking end? And I really think, same as we talked about last time, whoever owns the data loop is going to own that relationship. Interesting fact: if they see that they've always seen an uplift from AI discovery, then that traffic must be coming from somewhere else. I think that most obvious place is a generic OTA search. But in AI search, what I've read into the story and seen play out here is that the brand that trains the answers is going to win, right? Not the brand that bids for the highest. So that's a difference versus where we are with the OTAs. And we talked about big marketing budgets just in the last story, and the first story today. But I really think, even though we talk about independents moving faster sometimes on this podcast, the big companies are going to come out strong and first here. It's the big boys and girls that have the big teams, the funds, and the time to experiment. But they say they've been experimenting for a couple of years already. These big brands, they have teams who don't have to deal with a day-to-day only, like some of the smaller companies. And we've seen this with like we said, with the Hilton, Marriott for sure will come out with another direction, one way of another in this whole big experiment. But it's really the narrative that's going to drive the traveler's decision, and who's going to train all of this. So I think the real power shift, the next step happens if AI platforms are starting to own the post-booking engagement, and that's going to be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, Ben, I want your thoughts on one of the things. When I read the story, I was like, where is like Meta? Like, why doesn't Llama have like a exclusive partnership with some hotel brand by now, right? If we all believe that so much of travel discovery is happening on Instagram, like, where is Meta in this moment? Like, why haven't they struck some incredible partnership with the Marriotts or the Hiltons of the world, right? And why aren't they, using all of the intel that they have on Instagram, using all that creator content to do what these LLMs are doing? Like, it just seems like a no-brainer. Like, I know Meta's slow generally, and they're always kind of like in third place when it comes to like innovation, with respect to kind of big consumer shifts, being that they don't need to innovate as quickly as maybe some of the smaller players do. But what's your thought on this story? But also in particular, any thoughts on why we haven't seen greater adoption or really any innovation coming out of Meta's LLMs?
Well, to be honest, it's not always best to be first. Sometimes it's better to see, what other people do and then make it better. I mean, that was how Facebook was that way from the beginning, right? They were never the first. So I actually think that my hope, at least, is that they're being very thoughtful and strategic about how they roll this out. I mean, you know that I would very much prefer them to have a direct booking option as opposed to just partnering with an OTA, which is the easy solution, which is what TikTok did, which I absolutely hate. Right. So, if it takes them another 6 months to a year to do it right and have a thoughtful integration that allows, and, I don't know how much I love just like partnering with select brands. Right. It's like, why not create a solution that works for all hotels? Then you can be the biggest game in town. Right. If you're not trying to monetize some, short, quick win partnership, but you're actually trying to become broad distribution for as much inventory as possible, then like, I think that platform will win. The one that does that. It's much more, much less short-sighted, right? And I think that Meta historically has been that way, and I think they'll be that way here too. Time will tell. Maybe they'll just partner with Expedia. I really hope not. But yeah, that's certainly my hope, and I think we'll see it in the next 6 to 12 months. They're typically not years behind, right? Maybe 12 to 18 months at most. I think that they could do incredible things for hotel distribution, as AI will, right? I think both of these things are snowballing at once, and it'll be really interesting to see how they both evolve and potentially like evolve together.
Yeah, you should be able to click on a.
Yeah, and it'd also be interesting. So I just want to add. I mean, it also depends on who's going to announce first, right? So it's not only who's entering this first, but who's announcing first. Because if these companies have all been playing an experiment over the last couple of years, it really depends on who's going to say, I'm out there, first, second, third, fourth. And Meta could be doing things on the side with companies already for a long time.
Should be as simple as like clicking on a reel, right? And then it's like, hey, I want to go here, and or I want to find hotels like this, right? Like, how do I go and travel to places like X for under $500 a night in March, right? And like those are the sorts of like very natural, easy evolutions from a product perspective that they could deliver overnight if they wanted to. So, Scott, what's your take here on the story before we close out and head to a couple final segments before we sign off here?
Yeah, so I personally think that Meta's already working on something. I have a feeling it's going to be bookable links direct. Ben, you can smile. If they do, every creator in the world will go back to being Instagram's their favorite platform, because they have lost a lot of creators out there that used to make serious money on Instagram, and they all left. Or they didn't leave. They're still there, but they're not there in their heart anymore. They're not posting every day. They're not, they're playing around with TikTok and this and that. So I think that they would win back a lot of hearts, and I think they would once again become the most favorite platform for creators. I mean, listen, this is not a might happen. This is a going to happen. It's just how, because they have to do something, and they realize that they have lost a lot of love in the creator space. Me being one. I would in my sleep make a couple $1,000 a month off of Instagram. And now I got a deposit the other day for 86 cents. So, there's a drastic difference in creator spend right now. But so as far as Hyatt, listen, this is going to happen with everybody. I've heard that Marriott's already working on something. Listen, they all have to. And it's not with the big guys, it's not a matter of who's first. It's a matter of what they're doing with being first. Yep. Are they investing the right way? Are they doing content the right way? Because listen, before there was AI, right? There was still the social media ecosphere, which was very powerful for driving traffic and getting bookings and driving inspiration and aspiration and all desperations. But the hotel still messed it up. They still can't get content right. We're in 2026. It's ridiculous. So it's not a matter of leaning into it and being first. It's what are you going to do with it while you're there? Do you finally
Yeah.
do you finally admit to yourself that, okay, I didn't admit to myself that I needed the actual team to do this internally that doesn't have 100 other job responsibilities? This is all they do is content. Are you finally willing to look in the mirror and admit that?
And the unsexy thing that I think is a massive game changer here that I do think Meta will solve if they go the route that Scott's talking about is attribution and being able to actually tie bookings to organic social and awareness. If they can do that and show that, these hotels will finally wake up because that's the biggest thing. It's not discreetly trackable and the revenue attribution is horrific. So that's why, and I'll maybe talk about this in the Spice of the Week, that's why all these hotel brands, big brands, whatever, have decent or massive, in some cases, digital ad budgets, but they won't spend money on good content, good creative, good storytelling content, which is crazy because it makes your ads better, which we'll talk more about, but it's because the attribution isn't there.
It's because the dinosaurs don't believe in it.
Yes, 100%.
Get the dinosaurs out.
Well, and frankly, Meta, make attribution easier. You know what I mean? Frankly, make Google, Meta, figure it out so that the attribution mechanism is better than it is.
The fact that they have not evolved their interface, by the way, I run a bunch of ads for Journey, and it's horrible. It's what it was 10 years ago. And it's why is it so freaking clunky? There's no reason for it to be so clunky. And it's well, there's no reason. We don't need to invest in it. People use it constantly. It's why invest product management dollars there?
So, and the most down funnel metric you can get in Instagram, the most down funnel, and I guess TikTok's different, but in Instagram, it's external link taps. Who clicks on your profile link to go to your website to think about booking? Now, if in rolling this out, they can show dollars, right? Revenue booked. That is game over.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. All right, gentlemen, let's go to Spice of the Week. Ben, why don't you kick us off, sir? Because I know you might have to jump in a minute here. So kick us off with your Spice of the Week.
Creative is all that matters in today's social media, in today's digital ads. So let's talk about digital ads for a little bit. So we talked to tons of hotels that think they're spending a lot of money on ads, and by the way, aren't, right? They have budgets of $1,500 to $2,000 a month. That barely moves the needle. I don't really care that you have a 10x ROAS on $1,500 worth of spend. Now scale that spend, which is what we've done at Onera, right? Scale that spend to $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month and maintain, 8, 9, 10 plus ROAS. Now you're driving meaningful bookings direct. But the point is that because the Meta ads ecosystem and the Google ads, platforms have gotten so much better at sort of matching an ad to the right audience. You're not putting in all these different audience parameters like you used to. Best strategy now is often to let the algorithms figure out who your ad should be shown to. So if that's the case, the only differentiator is your creative, is your content. So if you invest in good content, you not only get good organic social performance, but then you can take those winners and then convert them into ads. And this is not new, right? Personal brand people, DTC brands, people are doing this all over the internet in terms of e-commerce, but hotels are obviously notoriously slow. So the takeaway here is invest in that organic content and then repurpose it into ads. So bump up your organic budget for creative content storytelling, and then you can actually scale your ads budget. So, okay, sure, overall you're spending more, but you're going to see massive returns on that spend as opposed to just ticking the box. So that's my soapbox on creative is everything today.
I love it. I'll double down on that. So this might have been 2020. So right as COVID was hitting, right? But the trend started before. We saw this move in B2B SaaS where B2B SaaS software companies were buying niche media assets, right? So they were buying newsletters, they were buying Morning Brew for those who might be familiar with them, right? They were bought by Business Insider, so a little bit different, but The Hustle was bought by HubSpot, for instance. The Hustle was a very trendy, business-focused newsletter for young professionals, right? HubSpot bought them for audience, right? Then HubSpot proceeded to go buy a bunch of podcasts, right? And what was super interesting, because I had some friends whose content had been purchased by HubSpot, is the creator retained the ability to talk about whatever he or she wanted, right? So they could have whoever they wanted on their shows, talk about whatever they wanted, et cetera. HubSpot had the right to, run ads on their podcasts. They couldn't run any other ads besides HubSpot ads, etc. In exchange, they got fat recurring checks from HubSpot, which enabled the creator, quite frankly, to do more, to develop more content assets, to do way more than because they weren't spending all this time trying to like chase the right brand deals, right, and or get paid. I think what we're going to see, and this is my spice of the week, is as distribution becomes more important than ever before, and quite frankly, scarier and harder to kind of figure out than ever before. I think what you'll see in the short term is some hospitality brands go and acquire niche media brands, whether that's like a hotels above par sort of like account, whether that's, and maybe it's not a true acquisition, but maybe it's, hey, we're going to go and Marriott Bonvoy for each of our brands, we're going to go find 5 to 10 creators. We're gonna basically like license them for a few years. In exchange, Scott, you still do whatever you want to do, right? But we're gonna write you a fat check every month. We have the right to use any of your content in our ads that we see, right, as interesting, right? And once a month, you're gonna do something specific to promote Marriott. Right. I think we're gonna see these like content licensing deals that might be a formal kind of acquisition of the Mr. Scott Eddy brand, or might not be a formal acquisition of it, but a long-term licensing agreement. Because I think that these folks, they have a lot of cash, right? They don't have a lot of time, as we were talking about before, but the smart ones do know where the puck is going. So my prediction, my spice of the week, is that in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll start seeing these creative partnerships that look kind of like strategic acquisitions of media assets roll out from some of these hotel brands. Scott, what about you, sir?
Yeah, so I fully agree with what you're saying, but I want to add on to what Ben was talking about. So I talk to a lot of brands, constantly, some face-to-face, some on calls, and these brands still think that when a video does bad or a post does bad, throwing money at it is the way to make it better. And you should never, ever, ever throw paid behind a post that fails. You should save your budget for the post. You should post everything organic, and the ones that hit, those are the ones that you double down and triple down on. And the industry just does not get it. And you are literally wasting what little budget you're applying to what needs to be applied to. You know what I mean? It kills me all the time. And they're just, we try so hard to get these properties to invest the proper budget to the proper things. And then they go and do something like this. And then the results for sure are always bad. And then they have an inconceived notion about doing ads. Well, yep. You did this to yourself.
Some of it's systemic though, Scott. You know what I mean? Some of it is systemic, that like the PR firms that bolted on social and ads that didn't really know what they were doing, right? Like they're testing 1 or 2 pieces of creative a month. You need to be testing dozens of pieces of creative a month, right? Minimum. And so like I've worked with them. Oh, we're going to test 2 pieces of creative for 3 weeks. What? That wasn't already tested organically, right? It was just mind blowing.
Crazy.
And then also, so many of these like marketing firms and PR firms that service hotels, content is not a core piece of the offering. It has to get farmed out. It's like, oh, okay, we have our videographer and photographer we work with, and we do like 2-3 shoots a year. Like it needs to be foundational to marketing today. And until the service providers change and like the industry stalwarts wake up, like it's not going to change.
Well, and quite frankly, from a technical perspective, you need to integrate. Like Meta needs to have access to your CRM. Meta needs to understand like, who are the people that are actually booking, right? And why are they booking? Because that needs to feed the algorithm, Ben, to what you're talking about. Like gone are the days where like you spend hours and hours on audience selects, right? And geo distribution even. Like, I mean, those things can help inform the algorithm still. They're not like a bad thing to do, but like it's way better to just let Meta and Google do their thing, right? But in order to let them do their thing, they need to know what's valuable to you. They need to understand, oh, wow, these are the kinds of people that actually booked, right, a stay at your hotel, and there should be this endless feedback loop between your CRM, right, your PMS, your customer data, your guest data, and Meta, and that should just be on rinse and repeat. You look at these folks, you talk to them, you hear what they're doing for ads. 90% of the time they're doing boosted posts or they're doing traffic-based ads, right? Which literally are nothing. It's just a waste of money, right? Like you have to understand, like you have to give Meta the right to understand who is booking and why. And then just give them the right budget. And then to your point, what you said was incredible, Ben. The only the last frontier for differentiation, right, is creative. Like you're not going to outsmart audience building. You're not going to outsmart technical setup or development. It really is in your creative. That was well said. Sorry, Scott. I think I cut you off.
No, you're good.
All organic, right? Do all organic for awareness. Maybe boost the occasional winner on the organic side, but don't need to, and then spend all your money on conversion ads like that. Yeah. Take the winners and spend all your money on conversion ads. Like it's simple, but very few folks are doing this, and
because it takes time.
Yeah,
it adds.
Yeah, and people, right? I mean, as a hotelier, I know. My question back to you is, well, how do we change this? And Scott and I, a couple of months ago, were back and forthing on this on a LinkedIn post. But there's still a lot of hotel owners who say my daughter is good with social media. That's
my niece will take care of it.
I can tell you. I mean, you can laugh at it, but it's reality. And we keep talking about trialing with 12, 14 posts. That's a team, and hotels just don't see the value in this yet, and it's such a shame, right? Because there are so many people. A large organization out of 250, 300 staff members. Why isn't there a larger team on this? And how do we get people to understand it? So it's not the trainee walking around with her iPhone because she's good at making pictures.
Hopefully, we're doing some of that good work. We're doing some of that good work to try to educate folks, right? I mean, that's what I hope.
I hope because we talk about it enough. Yes.
Edwin, let's close out with you, good sir. Your spice of the week.
Yeah. So I want to put questions back to you because we have one of the biggest events in sports coming up, the World Cup, soccer, football, wherever you are. And my question back to you is, we don't hear a lot about it on this side of the pond at the moment. And normally there's a giant build-up, which it affects restaurants and hotels and travel. What's happening on your end? Because I think it'll interest people perhaps who are interested in the US, but definitely on this side of the ocean, to really understand. Is there hype? Is it pumped up, or what do you think we're going to expect?
That's a good question.
What are you hearing on your side?
I will say, so we've been working with some of our partners on some fun campaigns around the World Cup, and what I will say is I have been pretty underwhelmed by the hype, right? Like people are excited about it. Like people know it's happening, but there isn't as much buzz as you would expect, right? Now, obviously, the World Cup's international, it's huge, but for it being in North America and being in strategic markets all across the US, I would expect more buzz. I'd expect more people coming and saying, okay, what's our strategy here? What do we want to do? So from my very limited vantage point, we're working and we're sort of initiating the conversation, I guess is one way to put it. We're saying hey, what do you want to do for World Cup? Versus folks being oh, hey, okay, we need to talk about World Cup strategy, right? Which I think is an indicator of how present it is or is not on individuals' mind. But curious to get Scott and Ben's take on this as well.
Yeah, so being based in South Florida, most of my friends are Latin, so soccer and football, it's always top of mind, top of conversations down there. It is underwhelming, and I think there is one big reason for that, and I think it's politically driven, why it's not being talked about and why people aren't dumping tons of funds into huge campaigns like they normally do. I think it's ridiculous because it's a wonderful event. And but I do feel that I can't remember the last time that it wasn't talked about this much ever. It's been decades.
Yeah. Okay. So you're feeling the same things as we're
100%. And it's all political. Whatever side you're on, it's all political.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the sport.
Correct.
Not being as large, perhaps, in other parts of the world.
Zero. And it's a shame to all the players and all the teams and all the everybody that is putting everything that they have into these events, and this is their time to shine. for a lot of these guys, their one and only time to shine in the World Cup. And it's a shame, but it's the reality of the world we live in.
Ben, any last words on this?
I mean, shocking. I'm a little out the loop when it comes to this one. Certainly in years past, World Cup has, I feel like, been a much bigger talking point amongst operators and revenue managers and all the rest. Like, heard a little bit about it and then not much at all. I don't know if part of that's because like it is North America and, you know, the US has so many other sports that are diverting attention. So it's not as, you know, big here maybe as it would be in other, you know, continents. So I don't know if that plays a role in it. I also think that like, maybe there is an element of other sports are becoming that much more international. So maybe there is some share being taken. Like, look how international basketball is now. It's wild, right?
Yeah. Or how the Super Bowl is perceived on this side, right? Because that was a typical American sport, but everybody watched Super Bowl.
Really is he like I don't, you know, and I know they have the games in London and other, you know, countries in Europe now too.
And we don't even understand the sport.
They love it, and the games sell out like this. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. But there's interest, right? So who knows? Maybe it's a leading indicator.
Well, gentlemen, it has been another great episode of This Week in Hospitality. Friends, thanks for tuning in to the pod. Wherever you are listening to this, please subscribe. Please leave us a comment. Please like the content. Let us know what you think. Again, we work hard every week to find the stories that we're excited about sharing, but would love to hear more from you all. We've got some fun segments planned coming down the pike. We want to bring in some additional voices too to help riff with us on the stories that we bring you and hopefully some insights that we bring you as well on the show every week. So if you or someone you know is interested in making a guest appearance on This Week in Hospitality, holler at any one of us. Again, our socials will be in the show notes below. You can find and connect with all of us there. Scott, Ben, Edwin, thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and we will see you all next week.
Peace.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us this week. If any part of today's conversation sparked an idea or helped you think differently about the industry, we'd love to continue the conversation. You can find each of us on LinkedIn, on X, on Instagram, or whatever your preferred social platform of choice is. Links to all of our profiles are in the show notes below. This Week in Hospitality is presented by Journey. Journey is a loyalty platform built specifically for independent boutique hotels and high-touch hospitality brands. Our mission is to give operators the same powerful rewards engine, data intelligence, and guest insights that major chains rely on, without asking them to give up the individuality, the soul, and the story that makes their property so exceptional. At a moment when travelers are craving unique, meaningful experiences and operators are navigating rising OTA costs, fragmented data, and shifting expectations, Journey provides a unified ecosystem that strengthens guest relationships, increases direct bookings, and helps independent properties thrive on their own terms. We're building a global, curated alliance of exceptional hotels, villas, and residences, a network that rewards exploration, empowers individuality, and gives independents the scale that they deserve. If you're an owner or operator of an extraordinary independently owned and operated hotel or residence, and if you want to see whether your property is a fit for the Journey Alliance, you can learn more and apply at alliance.journey.com. All right, friends, we'll see you next Friday. Until then, keep building experiences that are worth remembering.